Welcome to today's program on the Panorama SkillBASE industry voices and perspectives. And today we will share information that sheds light on the challenges that is facing the European audiovisual industry. We will discuss with experts the next steps in how we bridges the education and the industry, and we will look at how young professionals can break into the VFX and animation sectors. You will also be introduced to a new research project from Université Paris 8 that is mapping the European animation industry along with the Panorama guidelines and recommendations from 2025, looking at the work environment dynamics and soft skills in the European animation and audiovisual industry.
Expression and freedom, that's creativity.
It's a very important word, and I think encompasses a lot of things.
Finding different solutions for complex problems.
I wish I could tell this to my younger self, and so I'm sharing this, is I think as much as there's creativity, I think we need focus. We need absolute one-point focus. And when we have that, magic happens. Because what you're visioning, what you're envisioning in your mind becomes real. And that requires practice, and practice.
Yeah.
So the industry is not outside. The industry is you. The industry is what you put out, is the industry. So I believe that when I, as an individual, can create an industry, then I, as an individual, have to pay attention and focus to my creativity.
Creativity means having an open mind, being curious. That's really what I think where creativity sprouts from, is a curiosity that a person can have. And, you know, from the artistic point of view, is that you can create with creativity things that do not exist. And that's what always drove me towards this, the entertainment field. So it's it can be really a very important word to fuel a person to progress and, you know, go forward in this kind of field.
There are different ways to get to the same goal. Yeah, or in our industry, the final picture is in someone's head, and we have to find creative ways to put it on the screen, right? And our people use tools for that. Some go this way, some go that way, some go all the ways. And I think that's, for me, the key of that word. My point of view always is I'm trying to emphasize that even though our artists are sitting in front of computers all day, every day, I always try to emphasize they're artists. But for me, an artist is somebody who actually finds creative solutions for something. You can be a visual effects artist, you can be a design artist, you know, there are many levels of artists. For me, it's about the creation. An artist creates things. In our case, pictures, right? Or movies or whatsoever. Yeah.
So today's guests will be Rémi Sourier from Paris 8 and Marianne Dubruns, who from Rise Visual Effects, that you also saw in the video. And the reason why the video was from Stuttgart, the FMX in Stuttgart, where I had the chance to ask different professionals for the online SkillBASE about what creativity meant to them. Creativity is probably at the center of all the professionals who is watching this, is at the center of their profession. So it's an interesting topic, but it's also more than just an interesting topic about how we become good at making visual effects and how we become good at making animation. It is also something that is necessary for today's society, because creativity is what is needed for our imagination to flourish, for our ability to look into the future and try to predict what is coming. So the imagination that people in the audiovisual industry is actually possessing is an important skill for the whole imagination of society. But we also looking at what I would call the European challenge. So one thing is that we have to be creative and we have to be good at performing our creativity, but we are also going to look a little bit of the European challenge. I hope we can get some PowerPoint up rolling here, because we are now in Europe. Something we found out when we were analyzing the findings in the research report, work environment dynamics and soft skills in animation, games, and VFX industries, was that one of the biggest problems in Europe right now is actually that we are not having a market share that is big enough in relation to how many people we are in Europe. There's 448 million people in Europe, but 70% of what we see on our screens is American produced, and then you have something that comes from other parts of the world. So even though that Europe is the most the area in the territory in the world where there's most subsidies for production, because we look at it as a very cultural thing, we are not even able to have our own market, and that is a thing that we have to look at. So we looked a little bit into what is the European challenge, and I think there might be some PowerPoint coming up here from our center in Stuttgart. Yes. So Panorama looks at the challenges of the European audiovisual industry, and challenge number one is we are speaking multiple language. We have multiple regulations, and we have many different kind of funding systems. We also have a lack of unified branding. We all know that anime is from Japan, but nobody knows what comes out of Europe. We don't have a European branding of anything that people feel like it comes from Europe. It's now we have Remy as one of the speakers later, and he will surely agree that, of course, we have something called French animation that is very clear, but we don't have German animation. We don't have Danish or Norwegian animation as something that people out in the rest of the world knows about. And if they know about it, it will be for one film that comes from 1 year. So we have really a lack of unified branding. Then we have European productions are often the budget are significantly lower than for the other territories, especially for United States. Often we're looking at a budget that is only around 20% and sometimes down to even 5% of for a feature film than what we see in United States. We don't have access to risk capital, and there's very little private investment in our films. And that means that the dependence on public funding makes our films go in let's say a less commercial direction. And why that on one side is very beautiful, because it creates a room and a space for lots of experimentation and lots of let's say more artistic productions that can have many very valuable statements about what it means to be human in the world today, in many wonderful styles. It is hard for these to really get out there and to be seen by a world audience. Then we're having a weak global distribution and promotion. We're simply not good at, we're lacking international distribution networks. We don't have marketing muscles. We have limited exposure on the global streaming platforms. And then there's these things about IP ownership, where we are kind of reducing the licensing potential, because the IPs they're not owned by somebody who really invested in them, and therefore they are not pushing for this IP to be promoted on other markets than the European. And then, of course, what we know, us who have been in the educations for a long time, we have a talent drain and brains that are leaving Europe. Many of our biggest talents, they move to United States, they move to Canada or to London, which is not a part of Europe at the moment. And they move there because they are getting better salaries and they are getting longer contracts, and they might even get a possibility to save up for their retirement, which is a good thing. So we struggle to keep our talent in Europe. Then we have limited transmedia and franchise strategies, which means that it's very few companies that actually think about how can we explore our exploits is the word. How can we exploit our IP in the best thinkable way? And it's not that I'm sitting here and saying that we need to plastify everything into a million different products, but the fact that other people are doing it on our market is just saying something about that we are not really good at taking our stories and narratives and bringing them out in the reality in other ways than just in the game or in the film or the TV series. And then, of course, we have what we could call cultural modesty and local focus. It often comes with where the money is coming from. So we have regional film funds that require that we are dealing with cultural topics in the region, languages in the region, or that the work is placed in a region. We have national film institutes that are there, that are giving us cultural money to promote, if that's the word, our national identity. We also have tax rebates that is also kind of fragmented into local systems. So it's not that I think that we should stop having all of these subsidies, but we should be able to think more about how we make all of these subsidy schemes work together. And a tendency that we are having what we call art house and culturally specific storytelling also limits the mass market potential. We have a lack of strategic alliances. I think I am very happy of being a European. I think it's a wonderful continent to be a citizen in. I think that the last 30 years of European collaboration have shown us a lot about how we can work together and how we can overcome what we thought was cultural differences and finding out that there's not so much difference. We are actually citizens in the world. But we still need to be able to build alliances with industries and companies and players and partners outside our own territory to be better at building products that can be marketed globally. And then platform dependence means that there is still very few European streaming platforms, actually. I only know one, I think, of Mubi, but the rest is American platforms. So we're having a hard time on the distribution side. Now, all of these things is just lined up here, not to make us sad, but to look at what is the challenges. What should we focus on when we are trying to change these things? And I know that maybe a young professional who starts in a new animation company on the floor the first day will not be able to really influence these things, but being able to discuss it inside the companies and being able to innovate and say, this is the directions we need to go in. I think that is very important in the coming years if we want to create a strong European audiovisual industry, which I think is really important if we want to keep the democracy we're having, the values we're having, is that we are able to a higher degree, tell stories that is European and not just small national stories that are only cultural products. So thank you for seeing these 8 slides that I call the European Challenge, you will be able to download them from the online SkillBASE, so you can see them by yourself. I don't think anybody had the time to just take notes here. So we are back in the program, and I would like to just a second. I would like to, unless there's a little skiller coming here from our central in
The school needs to make sure that the students learn foundations.
Education is like air. Education is like what we breathe in and breathe out.
I would have a industry partnership, campus, and everything goes.
Education is a form of building your confidence. Education is a tool to say, I know the basics, I understand the basics. But education, the olden way of educating people has to change, because we've been told this is how you do it. But with the current way the technology is rapidly changing, with AI getting involved, with the internet exploding, where you have access to everything around the world, like I couldn't think about, if I want to hire an artist in Nigeria, I can hire an artist in Nigeria. So I think education, the primary responsibility of education is to eradicate fear. Education is not about learning how to use a tool or apply how to become a better animator. Education is to say, I am good at what I have learned, but I have to multiply what I have learned. Education should give you the confidence to say, oh, the industry is going through a bad time. No problem. I know what to do next.
The school needs to make sure that the students learn foundations. In this transition that we are seeing now, in this world that is changing, the industry is changing, software will change. The students can learn to press every button in the software, but this might last for 1 year and then something new comes. So the student needs to learn the foundation. So it's really like artistic foundation. If you are a sculptor, so learn anatomy very well, learn how to translate this into 3D. For a texture artist, like start from looking at real materials. You need to be trained on that, start training your eye. And these are sets of skills that I don't think they will change much. So anything can change, software can change, everything, but these skills, they stay. And the students need to have this solid foundation in order to be able to change industry, to adapt to anything that the industry throws our way.
Only pressing buttons will not help you down the road if you don't understand the logic behind it. So from my point of view, it's understand what the software is doing for you, because then at the end of the day, you just learn the software. And you learn the software. But if you understand the main concept behind that, this is what sets apart the, let's say, the okay artist from a great artist. And down the road, and that's also something I always talk about, I know how busy and how stressful student projects are. Working outside in a real company with a real client and a real budget is a totally different thing, right? On the other hand, you gain your knowledge in the university. You go out there and you work in a studio. You bring knowledge back to the university. And this is a way how universities also get feedback on what they do. Hence, I think there should be more mandatory internships during your education. This is the knowledge transfer we need. University to the studios to the universities via the students, and also obviously via collaboration, right? I mean, we are part of the same project, right? And we try to do that, bridge that gap. That's the goal. Yeah? And I think that's how I would set it up. I would have a industry partnership, campus, and everything goes.
And now welcome to Remy Sourier from Paris 8 University. And Remy, You are actually, as a part of the Panorama project, you're doing a quite big research project, and I'm sure it became bigger than you thought when you started at it. But can you tell us a bit about what you're working with?
Yeah, just in a few words, and just well, I don't know. I think I'll just do some drawing because it will be helpful and a drawing than a speech. My research is about mapping the creative industries around Europe, and especially in the audiovisual fields, and I'm trying to understand where are all the studios in Europe, in which countries, and how they are different from each other's. That was the beginning of the project. So at the beginning, I was looking at studios because there is different type of studios. There is different type of size of people, of productions. So from the point of view of a student, when you are trying to learn stuffs, the tools, the skills, you are you are just thinking about things about in technical way. But when you are going in a studio, you are working with specific tools from the studios, a specific type of production, a specific type of communications, and everything is completely different from one studio to another one. So I was trying to mapping not only the studios in the geographical way, but also from the economics aspects or the politics aspects. And what is very interesting that each studios has different type of workflows or pipelines productions, and it directly implies the way you are doing stuffs, in fact, in studios. So I can share to you my screen. It will be easier if you want. Yes, thing like this. Yep. So not this one. Yep. Harry's. You know all these countries. So it's just the beginning. It's completely not finished. But I tried to map studios all around our countries from the Panorama team, and I'd like to explore more in depth in Great Britain, Italy, Spain, and also from the east of Europe because it's very interesting. But I will just focus on our countries. So, for example, the France, because I really know it very well. There is something like a very centric country around a town, a very little town you already know, which is called Paris. And everything is in France is very centered in near Paris, like 90%, for example, of the jobs are near Paris. But we observe that from the 10 last years, there's a lot of new studios who are just borrowing around the countries, and it's also very linked with each others. There are a lot of reasons for this, for example, about economics or politics, and studios are just mapping around. And there is a lot of schools here, 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 everywhere. There is schools everywhere. So you just learn stuff from a point of view in geography, and you will try to get a job somewhere else. But what you don't know when you're a student is that a place like Angoulême in France or Annecy, hello, whereas the Festival of Annecy, or if you're in the south of France, there is specific studios. If you want to go to the animation fields, you will probably have more luck in the Paris field. Or if you want to have something like technical aspects, yeah. So depending on where you are learning stuffs, it will help you a little more about getting in the job. But there is more interesting with that. Different countries implies different types of economics, and there's different types of logics of founding the productions. So, for example, in Germany, there's something that is called lenders, and there is states in the states, and each state has specialization, and it gets very important when you want to founding a specific type of products, because if you want to have something from the animation or VFX, you have to go to Stuttgart. That's the point, because there is very great schools we know, all which is called Animation Institute. There's also other schools, but the main studios, like, hey, Rise FX, very great here. And but well, everything is located in places in Germany, and each country has its own rules. There's specifically stuffs in animations or VFX or virtual reality, depending on the places. And when you're students, you don't really know all the studios. There is hundreds of studios. It's huge, and there is big companies like Illumination. Never mind. And if you just have only the big companies, it will be very hard to get in the studios, because you won't probably start with big companies. You will probably start with 10 people companies, and it will be very great because you will learn the skills, you will learn the work, how works stuff. So that's just the beginning of my mapping. And just to end on something, the mapping is just the whole thing. There is about geography, it's about economics, and I'm drawing with my mouse if you want to know. It's also about politics, and fear my mouse skills. And all this stuffs will directly imply the studio forms. There will be small studios, big studios, studios about animation, long films, short films, series. It will be different type of typologies of studios, and it will directly imply the way you are working, playing the workflow. Yeah, the workflow is just the thing you learn at the school at the beginning. You start with layout. You after this you have the modelization, and you have, well, for example, animation, and you have lighting, stuff like this. Yeah, and you learn in school that, yeah, it's a straight line, and at the end you will deliver the movie, and it's completely wrong, in fact, because in a more underground way there is something that we might call it the data flow, and the data flow is directly implied by the pipelines. What is this? Yeah, that's a subject. This is the IT infrastructure, it's the software, it's the plugins, it's the personal scripts, it's the way the studio is working with tools. Each studio has different pipeline. Each production from one studio has different pipelines, and sometimes in a production, the pipeline is also evolving. So when you are coming in a school, you will probably learn, well, tools, stuffs, but when you will go to the studio, you will have to learn the workflow specific to each type of studios. You will also have to learn the data flow, which is completely different, and you will have to adapt to specific tools, to specific way of communication, specific way of doing stuffs, and you will have to adapt to the situation, which is the most important aspect. That's it.
Interesting, Remy. And now we also have Marian Dobruns from Rise Effects. Hello, Marian. Are you there?
I am there.
Yeah, okay.
Got it. Yeah.
And we saw you also in the video before. I think now we can have a little discussions about Remy's research, and because the first thing I thought was, it's very interesting if that there is the French studios has French daughter companies, but they all what do you say, they don't branch out to other countries in Europe. So typically, if Rise Effects would have a daughter company, it would be in another German town. Is that right?
Remy is shaking his head, so let him go first, please.
Yeah.
What's happening?
What do you think about this, Remy?
I think no. Well, there is a lot of collaboration between companies all around Europe and all around the world. Different type of production implies different type of studios, and it's a typology of studios, because there is local studios who just work as well, you just give them pictures and they just do the job, and they go back out, they output all those pictures of movies. But there is also companies or studios who need to communicate between each others, so they try to build some sort of collaborative tools and some sort of data files, managing stuffs, but that's for the temporality of one production. And if you have another production, you are not sure to work with the same company, so you will have to adapt to different type of studio, depending on if you are working in Europe space in English, or maybe you will work with Chinese people or Indian people who has different mastering of English, for example. So it's completely different from each productions.
How can the educational institution prepare students the best way of for this kind of multinational and multi workflow and multi software world?
Yeah, I think we just have to talk about the complexity of steps. That's it. When you start learning animation in school, you learn basic stuffs, which is quite clear. Like there is a famous drawing with rabbits who are drawing, making a movie, and it's implied the pipeline of animation movies, and it's quite good. But it's most of the time a straight line. But the production is not a straight line. Most of the time there is a lot of iterations. There is a lot of parallelization of works. There's also there's many things that you need to know when you're working on stuff that, for example, you will probably work on something from someone who you never met just before, and you will probably never met, and you will have to do stuff that you will bring to someone else, and you will probably never met the guy to whom you will output it. It's a complete different setup from a school when you are all your mates that are your neighbors and you can just chit chat with them. It's different. And also there is the tools, because when you're working on your own workstation, you have a precious workstation. It works very well. Maya is not so much scratching. But when you are in 100 company, when you are in 100 or 1,000 companies, people, it's just completely different, because there will be a lot of dependencies between softwares, and maybe the morning you will work with a specific version of Maya, and the afternoon you will work with another version of Maya, because you will need specific tool, and so you will have different type of shortcuts or different type of steps, and the stability of softwares will be completely different. So yeah, when you are in school, you are effectively in a safe space of working, and when you are in the workspace, it's different type of roles. But you learn it because you are doing internships or you are just working as a junior.
How can your research projects bridge the gap between education and industry?
Where I think there is two answers for this. The first one is I just want to give a map of where studios are. I think it's the most important, because students don't really know what are the studios, where are they, why is there so many studios, why is there so many different type of studios. I think it's the most important aspect. The economics and politics aspect is a more in-depth research that to explain stuffs. But I think from a student, I think they just need to know, okay, where is the studios? That's just the first answer. And the other answer is I want to bring to students knowledge about what we might call it the hard skill aspect of working. It's okay. What are the softwares? Yeah. What are the tools? How do they communicate to each others? Why is there studios who is working in animation with Maya and another one with 3ds Max? Why is it so not so important? And also, why do you have a different type of work with all this stuff? There's a lot of students, for example, who are very fond of Blender, and they just go in schools and they say, yeah, Blender is a very great tool. Yeah, it's a great tool. But when you work in a very huge company with a lot of people, with a lot of people who are already using Maya or other stuff, it's not so easy to bring new softwares or new way of thinking. And there is also other tools like Houdini, and now with the artificial intelligence. It's not only about tools, it's also about philosophy of work in the studio. I think
So
something like this.
can we conclude that actually the ability to change to change software and change perspective when you work is a very important skill.
Yeah. I think you must not think that you will do the exact same thing from a school and in a studio.
Mhm.
You will learn stuff. Okay, you will create pictures and very great. Okay, but when you will be in a studio, there will be different types of rules, because there will be probably specific type of softwares. For example, Buff in France had developed its own tools inside the studio, but all the studios around the world develop some sort of scripts or different type of tools, and it will just change the way you are working with this. But also, depending if you are working in the VFX or the animation or games or VR, there will be different type of rules. When you are in animation fields, it's very straight. Well, you will have different specific type of jobs, but when you are in VFX, you will probably need to be more generalistic in skills. You will need to adapt to the need of the picture, so you will have probably more powerful in tools. But maybe Marianne will have different point of view. I don't know.
First, thank you for presenting your research project, which is not finished yet. You are in the middle of it, as far as I understand. And you will also, will Eastern Europe be a part of it, or how's that?
Yeah, I'd love to, because, well, we are very Western European project just right now, because this is the beginning of the project. I'd love to map all the Europe studios, in fact. Yeah.
And that would be an image of the moment, because this, as soon as you print it, it will probably start to change. So
yeah,
but
I hope it will help a lot.
Yeah. Marianne, welcome again, and let's hear a little bit about if we should be better from the educational side to prepare students for the industry, and the industry which Remy is mapping out here. Well, actually, a thought I had when I was looking at the map is that we're looking at a number of European ecosystems that should be combined into a real global industry. That is just a thought. We could maybe talk about that later. But Marianne, you're sitting. You are head of. Why don't you present yourself? So let's hear from you, Marianne.
I can try. Yeah, I will do that. Well, I'm the head of HR for Wise Visual Effects Studios for 9 years now, or working there for 9 years, not starting as a head of HR. I think Wise itself has offices in Stuttgart, in Bavaria, in Cologne, and in Berlin, only in Germany. And then we have one studio in London, which is no longer the EU, from what I can tell. Nonetheless, I think that also shows you how companies have to adapt to the funding situation in their respective countries, right? I mean, they have to open studios to be in a position to combine fundings with each other, to be competitive on a global market, right? Because some other countries, continents just hand out 40-45% of film funding, and then that's one big decision where the shows go, right? That's the one thing. I think the other part we are discussing here is education, right? And the question came up, what do you think we should teach people? And Remy, you said it in a right way. I think it's the hard skills. And the hard skills for me is not to learn which button to press in Maya or which button to press in Houdini. You have to understand the concept behind the software you are using, because then at the end of the day, you just learn to adapt to different softwares but the understanding or the bigger thing behind that is still the same. You're doing animation, then you have to use one tool to do animation. You're doing compositing, use one tool. Nonetheless, I think the one part we have to emphasize in the education is that people understand the logic behind what they actually do and not pressing the button. There might be private institutions who are called schools who made a business out of teaching people within 10 months how to get a show reel done, but I think that's not a good education or not a good approach to education. I think the good idea is to have a proper understanding of how to make a movie, maybe VFX, maybe animation, I don't care about that, but it's the proper and general understanding of what are you trying to do with your tool. And then you learn the tools, obviously, yeah? Then the third part, and I think some might have heard that in one of the videos from FMX already, right? I'm in Germany, and I'm pretty confident even in France as well, and other countries, hopefully, we have mandatory internships during the education. And I think that's a good thing. The students basically start their studies, then they study for 1.5 years or maybe 2 years. Then with the knowledge they gain, they go to the companies, do 6 months internship, right? Gain industry knowledge, and then they have to finish their studies. Via that concept, you make sure that new knowledge from the university comes into the companies, but also the students learn how it actually is working in the industry, within a company, with different maybe individual tools whatsoever. And they can also build the bridge back to the university, because at the end of the day, the education of future artists is only as good as the feedback from the industry, right? If you just educate people because you think it's cool to do that and that, without any feedback from the industry, you will not be successful, probably. Yeah, and I think that's also another thing to add there. Now I stumbled a lot, but some questions have been answered. I'm pretty confident. Morten, anything?
Yes, thank you. Here I am. Thank you, Marianne. One of the things I heard you say on the reel before, where we interviewed you in Stuttgart during the FMX, you said you ended you ended up saying that you really hope for much more collaboration between industry companies and educations, because the educations were able to provide a much more realistic idea about the industry environment, and this collaboration could maybe lead to a better understanding earlier in your career. And then you ended up with the words, anything goes. Now, I've been thinking about what that means. I've been working in education for a long time, and one of the things that is clear is that there is kind of an angst for getting too close between industry and school. This is an angst that exists in the educational system, where we're both encouraged to make collaborations, but I also see that there is this kind of a line where you cannot help a company too much, because then you are overstepping the kind of the boundaries between supporting the company with the education, exploiting the young people while they are in a teaching situation. What do you think about that? Should we make more close collaboration where we actually make a part of the education running together with companies who might get something out of that?
I mean, from my point of view, I can only talk for myself, right? I think that should be one of the big things moving forward, like closer collaboration, because in advice, sometimes we send our supervisors or just artists to the universities and they give a lecture or whatsoever. And I feel, as much as, don't get me wrong, those people also have to get paid, and if they're not working on shots, they nonetheless have to get paid, right? But at the end of the day, it's about that creating that ecosystem that, once again, the companies and the educational institutes are trying to work or educate the same people. Yeah, so why shouldn't the universities and the companies also try to work together, right? And I think there needs to be more collaboration, and it's obviously hard to just come up with 5 ideas and then we just go with it. But I think like the understanding that we, as the companies and the universities or educational institutes, we create an environment where actually the students or the artists to be are actually keen on staying in. Otherwise, they just go visit your university and then they're going to go to Canada or they're going to go to Australia or whatever. If you don't have this very close collaboration and partnership from the get-go, you will probably lose a lot of talent which goes somewhere else. Yeah, and that's our responsibility also to keep the entire industry alive moving forward from my point of view. But obviously it's always hard, right? Because we as a company, we are not paid to educate people to a certain degree. On the other hand, it's a give and take.
About a stronger collaboration, we will pass on to the educational institutions and hope that they will catch it and do something about it. We actually let's talk a little about how you get into the industry, and I think we're having a little film where you're also in there, Marian, where we're talking with different people at FMX. So if we could get that played from the central station.
If you really want to come and be in this industry, there's perseverance to go and be able to break into the industry, and you need resilience to kind of keep yourself going day over day.
Industry wants to transform artists' output into, I'm sorry to be that guy, money.
You're an artist, but you need to put your artistry at the service of what the industry asks you to do.
For a young artist going and entering this industry, I think the core skill that's needed, or I'd say 2 skills, perseverance and resilience. If you really want to come and be in this industry, there's perseverance to go and be able to break into the industry, and you need resilience to kind of keep yourself going day over day. And I think you have to be cognizant of what your role is. Are you the director and driving the vision, or are you a contributor to the director's vision? And understanding that and coming to peace within your role to go and help someone else envision it. So when you work for a studio or you work on a film, or anyone else has come up with an IP idea and you're contributing to it, you're contributing to go and help make that as best as it can be. But it is also that director's and that person's vision. Now in the data-driven world, I don't think of it as data-driven of like being data for data's sake. It's really about identifying, does this idea, does this property actually have value in the market, and is there enough other people who would be really interested in this idea too? So you want to make sure that you're kind of creating something that might have an audience, and you want to go and identify that there is an audience and that they exist and you know how to find them. That's the data-driven part, versus just making something for your own passion. You go and you create it and then nobody watches it, and then people get depressed and bitter that they're like, nobody liked my project. But you have to go and know where they are. Like if we want to go and catch a swordfish, I'm not going to go to the Great Lakes in the US to go and catch a swordfish. They don't live there. I need to go to the right environments and the temperate climates where a swordfish is going to live. And I think there's an element of that within our creative properties too. We have to go and set up our creative properties to be in the environments in which those individuals will be and thrive, so that they can find it, so that you can go and find that market alignment. And that's where the data-driven comes into it, because now you know where to go fish.
Observation. We, as industry, we reproduce some stuff that we see and we transform that. But we need to observe everything, like the pattern, on this wood, or any interaction with lighting. That's why we're trying to reproduce. And teamwork, communication. That's something we are in industry. We work with a group of people, and teamwork is communication is at the center of everything. Everyone prefers to get a really nice person which communicate, would deliver on time, on budget, that any, I will say diva or anything that can do something mental but is a prick at work.
We are in an industry that employs artists. There are different types of artists, and they are the ones that are more like, I do art for myself, for my soul, sometimes even not being too much happy to share. And this doesn't really go well with industry, not at all. You're an artist, but you need to put your artistry at the service of what the industry asks you to do. So I think it's the trick is to remain true to your principles as an artist, and also, it could be also going outside your comfort zone. You don't always choose what you're going to work on. And I think that the trick to survive this, especially for someone that it's more like a person that sees art really as an introvert thing, it's to take the best out of it, for your personal projects and your personal path that you do.
Artist is creative freedom, thinking outside of the box, doing things. And industry wants to transform artists' output into, I'm sorry to be that guy, money or a product or value. But I think artists working in an industry, I mean, they need each other. We need artists, industry, Yeah.
Yes. So Marian, it was an interesting bunch of statements. I think, and you are saying it directly that we move from maybe in the educations having we're sitting in an art bubble thinking that we are developing our own artistic styles and our own artistic being, and we come out in an industry that is about something very, very different, and that can come as a shock or a shaking for many young artists. And I think that the whole the way we put into words that you go to art school, but you come out and you are an engineer in an industry. That is kind of a thing that is a little contradicting. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I always say never forget that at the end of the day, most of the people working at our company are artists, right? They are sitting in front of a computer. Some of them are coding day in, day out, but at the end of the day, they are visual effects artists. Yeah, and that is something. On the other hand, obviously, the art of making or creating pictures or being within the visual effect industry is nowadays very much driven by computers, softwares, and knowing how to use them, right? So are you an artist? Are you an engineer? At the end of the day, for me, it's kind of the same, right? With the artist is using a tool to create its vision, right? And that's what it is, or the client's vision, or whoever is giving you the job. But at the end of the day, you just try to find creative solutions with the tools you have available to yourself to get it done, hopefully as fast as possible with the least amount of implications.
When I heard it, I was thinking that actually, what is what defines the artist is the creativity and the imagination, and then of course the skill set. That means that you are very good at drawing, you are very good at colors or whatever. You can be different skill sets, but tools you use to express yourself. And then you're first and foremost, when you get into the word industry, the ability to work together in teams with other people, realizing grand imaginations and grand visions, and actually even grand imaginations and visions that other people have had. But we need your imagination on how to solve that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I know maybe this is not so much your ball game, but many young people that comes in and chooses to work in visual effects and animation, they come in and they have the dream of becoming a director. And in that sense, they are artists on another level, because not only do they have to be good at producing and having a lot of talent in doing that, but they also have to imagine stories. And what we see is that a lot of young European people, they love. Say they're making something that is kind of coming from their own inner idea about something they want to realize, to see. But when they come out in the industry, and this is that going back to the European challenge, if we're going to lift up to a higher level of what we're producing, we have to look into what we could call data-driven content development, which means that the industry that distributes what we're making and thereby finances it, they have some specific things they want, kind of stories they want, something that can make them earn money, or at least have a great turnover on a project. So I think that because now you're sitting in a house that produces often very epic things, many explosions, planets colliding, and but imaginations on that level require millions of euros or dollars to produce. And that means that the investors that goes into this kind of adventures, they want to make sure that they're getting their money back, as you said at some point earlier in the clip from
obviously at the end of the day, but that is also, that's not as much on us as companies or us as educational institutions. I think it's people have to go to the movies. People have to stream the stuff, right? I mean, this is what the entire industry at this very moment is probably still trying to figure out, how the future of movies and episodical looks like, and where is it created and who creates it and all the stuff. That is right now a very interesting phase of this industry, to say so, right? And we as a, let's say, European market, I mean, what we always could offer is amazing talent, a lot of talent, amazing educational institutions, 100%, yeah. And also, I think a very solid system when it comes to working in the EU, yeah. There's a very good social welfare state and all those things. I think we should not hide behind everything that comes from across the Atlantic or whatsoever, right? We can be confident. On the other hand, that is always, or that it always has been and always will be, a global industry, right? And as you said, and that's also, there's truth to that, like at the end of the day, where there is the best funding system will probably decide where the work goes to, right? And that's, as stupid as it sounds, a reality in this industry.
Yeah. I think I'll say thank you, Marianne, for participating today. It was an interesting discussion, and good luck with your work in Rise Effects. So
thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
And we will go on to showing our last chapter of today is just to dive into what we call the guidelines and recommendations. I have here in front of me a research report that is made by Silke Hasreiter from Breda University. And this report, Work Environment Dynamics and Soft Skills in Animation, Games and VFX Industries, I think is 170 pages. So to make that a little easier to implement, we made another paper, which we call Towards Maturity, which is guidelines and recommendation based on the findings in the research project, Work Environment Dynamics and Soft Skills in Animation, Games, and VFX Industries. And I think we have a little PowerPoint that can just illustrate. So let's just move to the first slide. The next slide, yes. So we are doing this to see if we can help the European audiovisual industry to become healthier and stronger. We have divided the guidelines and recommendation up in 4 chapters. The first chapter is for educational institutions and also for students in the educational institutions. And it's a number of ideas on how you can what you should look at to make sure you have this in your education. There's advices and there's recommendations. And I think I'll just take, if we can look at the next slide. For educational institutions, develop specialized training, integrate real-world scenarios, promote lifelong learning for students, ensure lifelong learning for the teaching staff, and prepare students for the value of industry experience. This is all things that have come out of the research and that we would recommend a lot. Then the next chapter is on the audiovisual industry. That would be for Marianne from before, from IceFX, and everybody else who is running a company in Europe. How can we make sure that the work environment dynamics and soft skill situation becomes better? And let's try to look at the guidelines. Encourage work-life balance, foster collaborative workspaces, focus on diversity and inclusion, and aim for investment and bigger market shares. And we're saying that because if companies only go for, let's say, the low nominator, which means that they will get money as subsidies from the film fund and the regional film fund, and they don't think about they don't try to go out and find investors, we will often have situations where the work environment gets quite pressed, and there's too much to do for too little people. So the idea is that we will try to encourage the European industry to aim bigger and try to get more private investment into the productions. Then we have for young professionals a chapter, and this is of course to bridge the gap between industry and education. This is where the young professionals should look to see, okay, what can I do both to make the industry stronger, but also make my position better, and cultivate adaptability and collaboration. Balance hard skills and soft skills, maintain work-life balance, which means that you have to go home and have a life next to your work life, engaged in lifelong learning, and seek diverse experiences. Now, the advices I'm coming with here, I'm just giving you a very, very broad few headlines, but they are elaborated to great detail, and I think you will find it is inspiring to go down and read all of these things, because there is really good advices. And our final chapter, which we call Politics and Strategy, this is aimed at the politician and decision makers who are regulating our industry, who is defining the film support, and we are coming up with a number of recommendations and guidelines and recommendations that can help the industry become stronger right now in Europe. They are: make sure we have a primary and secondary education policy that promotes and develops creative citizens. This is very important, both for our industry, but actually, as I stated earlier, that imagination and creativity is some of the most sought after skills in the future society. We need to have a higher education policy that also deals with these things. We need to look at the support policy and make sure that it's actually playing much better together in Europe. We have to have a market development policy, and we have to have an investment policy. And all of these are detailed, described in the guidelines and recommendation from Panorama 2025, based on Silke Hassreiter's report, and they can all be downloaded directly from the SkillBASE, where you can find them, and hopefully together we can create a healthier, stronger European audiovisual industry. And then we are moving towards the end of the streaming today, and I just want to promote that in the coming months, in July, we are planning 3 streamings here on Panorama Online SkillBASE. The theme of the month will be young professionals, and your host will be Chris Ebeling from the company Beyond Horizon. He's also working for Unreal. And I know he has planned these 3 exciting programs for you. So keep your antenna pointing towards Panorama Online SkillBASE. There will be interviews with Alvin Hunt from the Rookies. There will be interviews with Leon Monschauer, a young professional freelancer, and Josephine Daiko from Calico, who's a founder and creative leading woman in emerging tech. And all the conversation will be focused on tips, tricks, and learnings for young professionals to help them understand how to navigate the current climate in the industry. It will be expert advice on how to gain entry to the industry and stay relevant, and identify a wider view of the possibilities that will open up in the industry space, not just in the part of the entertainment industry, but in the whole industry of communication here in Europe. So thank you for today, and thank you for the Central in Stuttgart, who has been running this streaming. Thank you.